evening, YouTube. You guys are now watching another segment of the Cali Effect. Today we are going over the Necroz deck profile brought to you guys by Ultimate Guard. If you guys would like to protect some of your most precious cards, I strongly suggest getting some of the Ultimate Guard deck boxes and binders. But most importantly, we're going to be talking about the Necroz deck. This is actually 42 cards, one of the only times that I actually go over 40. And it was very different to have cards, you know, going over 40. I was actually playing 45 in the tournament, and the deck ran really smooth. The only reason why I decided to go down to 42 is because two cards that I was playing I didn't feel was significant to the main board anymore. My apologies. But like I said, let's get into the deck profile so I can show you what I'm talking about and why I play a lot of different Necro cards. I mean, the deck is almost pretty standard, except you're forced to play, you know, other cards. So 3 copies of Valkyries, 3 copies of Gungnir, which is a new addition, but players only really ran 1. 3 copies of Colossus, 2 copies of Catastor. This card was actually considered bad for so long, and I understand why it was considered bad, but now it's not that bad, especially since it's one of your conditions to summon Trishula. 2 copies of Trishula. A card that was played around in the beginning of the format at 1 and 2. I've decided to run 2 because this is our win condition. 1 Unicorn and 1 Brionic. We would be running a lot more if they were weren't limited to 1. For regular monsters, 3 copies of Manju, 3 copies of Senju, 3 copies of Great Resorcerer, a really good card for this deck. 2 copies of Dance Princess, 2 copies of Exa, and then 2 copies of Max C. Where do I start? There's a lot of different cards that, you know, I'm playing inside of this Necroz deck. The biggest thing was finding this deck's win condition. While I can summon cards like Unicorn and Catastor, and they're really good against extra deck threats or cards that opponents pendulum summon, I needed a way to push 4 game to disrupt my opponent, to take away resources from them, and Necroz of Trishula filled that void. Now, summoning Necroz of Trishula was extremely hard since Sharit was banned, and you know, we don't have any monsters that just completely fill you know, the ritual spells requirements for us to special summon our ritual monsters. So I was forced to play Necroz of Catastor and Exa, Enforcer of Necroz, which, like, now that you think about it, the cards are really good. Catastor is amazing against extra deck, like I said before. Basically any card pendulum summoned or any card going into the extra deck, Necroz and Catastor gets rid of. So I mean, that's, now that you think about it, I think it's only bad matchup. The only 2 bad matchups it has is Monarch and Cosmo, which you can then just use it for Trish bait. Exa, when it's used as a ritual, you get to, you know, you get to search a dragon monster, which unfortunately I only could run Catastor. I actually wanted to run the level 10 guy, but I just could not find room, and it isn't as easy to summon as I would need, you know, Catastor, 2 Catastors or 2 Exa, or any combination of them both. The reasoning why I run 3 copies of Gungnir is actually a lot more simple than what you would think. Unicorn and Catastor are amazing threats against a lot of, you know, opponents that use the extra deck. The only problem is the opponent will summon cards that will get rid of my threats. So how do I protect it? Well, Necroz and Gungnir comes into play. Sometimes players like to summon monsters that can run over it. Sometimes, you know, Dark Hole and Raigeki are cards. But all I have to do is discard Necroz of Gungnir to protect my monster, and then further be able to negate my opponent's effects. Another great reason is that Dragon Pulse Magician is a card, and I've actually used Gungnir on Dragon Pulse Magician to protect my Unicorn, so they can't make all these ridiculous threats so many times. And then Gungnir is just a really good card on its own right. When you summon it, you can discard cards during either player's turn to destroy cards on the field. So I just felt that it was the next best thing since Slight Bread. Like I said, I search it more than I search Valkyries. Valkyries is still a really good standpoint, or a stronghold to this deck. Now, since it has, what, 8 targets or 7 targets to tribute and gain multiple effects up, it does become that much better. And keep in mind, against a lot of OTK-centric decks, I can just drop Valk like Battle Fader and, you know, continue on with my plays. The 3 copies of Great Sorcerer, I run 6 targets with the 3 copies of Valk and 3 copies of Gungnir. That's awesome. 2 copies of Dance Princess. Solemn Warning. I guess that was like the only reason. There's Solemn Warning. There's Bottomless. There's a couple other reasons why, you know, it's pretty good. But most importantly, with its tribute, I get to add it, banish cards from my banish zone to my hand with Dance Princess. So she's pretty cool. Exa is amazing. When it's banished, I get to special summon one of these guys to the side of the field. And when it's tributed, I get to add, you know, Catastors to my hand, which fall really good, have really pretty good synergy with Kaleidoscopes. Maxis, I would love to run 3. because more often than not, I do a lot of plays, I make a lot of monsters and all that other stuff, and then if my opponent makes a lot of plays to counteract those plays, I maxi them, and now I get to reload. So anytime I get to activate maxi after establishing a board is amazing. The Manjus and Sinjus are pretty obvious, and the Colossus is pretty obvious. Everything else, I think I explained pretty well. So now we can get on to the spells. For spells, I like to keep it very, very, very simple. There's a lot of cards or, you know, moving functions around in this deck, and I want to get to my cards as fast as possible. Let's get to it. 3 copies of Instant Fusion. Instant Fusion's God. Special summoning Norden that allows me for second turn or second plays. 3 copies of the Mirror. This is the best ritual spell card that we have in our arsenal, seeing that Sharid is banned, and it still allows us to make a lot of great plays. 2 copies of Kaleidoscope. A lot of players opted to use 1 copy of Kaleidoscope, but I still find a lot of play in Kaleidoscope because I can send cards like Star Eater, I can send cards like Quasar. I don't have to send Herald every single time to special summon monsters. Hell, I even found myself sending Catastor to summon Catastor from my hand. 2 copies of Cycle. Cycle's still amazing. I mean, it's not really much else to say about that. Yes, we don't have the Djinn lock, but Cycle still serves so many other uses for, you know, ritual monsters in our graveyard. 1 preparation and 1 reinforcement of the army. That's gonna sum up the spells. There's really not much else to say about any of the other ones. They're all pretty much self-explanatory. But now we can get on to the extra deck. Extra deck's really cool. I like to say that it's pretty versatile, allows me to summon a lot of Necroz monsters, and then at the same time I can still make XE plays with Norden. So 1 shooting Quasar, 1 Star Eater, 1 Leo. Like I said, you never summon these cards, but you use them for, you know, Kaleidoscope to send to your graveyard to special summon monsters. Keep in mind, Kaleidoscope says you send a card from your extra deck to summon monsters. It's actually plural. So if I send Shooting Quasar, I can summon 2 monsters that equal up to Shooting Quasar's level, and so on and so forth. For XE monsters that I'll actually summon, Dark Rebellion, Honor Arc, Castell, Diamond Dyer, Emerald, and Dweller. There was actually a game where I wasn't playing Dweller, and I kind of paid for it because it just would have been a better play. And then, obviously, the 2 copies of Norden. I don't run 3 because I've never needed 3, and I don't think you'll be able to draw 3 Instant Fusion. It's just not likely. The extra deck, like I said, is pretty self-explanatory. The reason why I run the Synchros is for Kaleidoscope, and it does pretty much have its amazing uses within Kaleidoscope. But now I guess I can talk about the side deck. Hard pressed for room. Here's the side deck. As you guys can see, the 2 Chimera techs are in the sideboard. There's not a lot of room in the main board, and I actually had side deck to spare, so I just decided to put them in there. Cyber Dragon and 2 cores. You guys should already know what that is. It's like F machines. 2 copies of Valor. These were in the main board, but I sided them out so much, so I was like, why not just move them to the sideboard and then side them in for decks that actually matter. 2 copies of Twin Twister for Pendulum decks. Dark Holes and Raigeki. This is actually really good against Monarchs. So, you know, your opponent tries to domain you and all that other cute stuff. Granted, it doesn't affect us as much as it affects other decks, but I still want to get over those problematic threats. So I'll go Dark Hole, Raigeki, and all that other great stuff. And then 3 copies of Decree, because, you know, Decree is pretty much the answer to back row heavy decks. Now that I'm done with the side deck, I can show you some combos. Some of the Nekroz combos are really complicated. I'm going to try to keep them as simple as possible. The first one requires Nekroz of Valkyries on your field, and then Great Sorcerer and Exa in your hand. What you would do is you'd activate the effect of Nekroz of Valkyries, and you tribute these 2 monsters to the graveyard and draw 2 cards. Furthermore, you'll activate the effects of Great Sorcerer and Exa, and those will be able to add, whether you want protection, you'll get a Gungnir, or whether you want to prevent an attack, you'll get Valkyries, and then you can add Necroz of Catastor through Exa's effect. Consequently, if you do run, I forgot the monster's name, the level 10 guy, you can add that one and make Valkyries 3900, which pretty sure it's going to be able to get over any threat, and I'm really leaning to finding a way to get that card, because getting over Dark Destroyer is amazing. Another combo is just the really most simplistic combo of all. You need Necroz of Unicorn and Kaleidoscope in your hand. What you do is you activate Kaleidoscope, you send Herald of Arclight to special summon Unicorn to your side of the field. Herald of Arclight activates since it was sent to the graveyard, and you can add any ritual card from your deck to your hand. Now, if you guys just so happen to have a Trishula in your hand, what you do is you add Brionica effect to add Colossus effect to add Mirror, and then you activate Mirror, banish these 2, and you Trish your opponent! Just awesome. But ultimately, these are a combo in itself. The only thing you need is the Nekroz of Trishula, and obviously, let's just say Brionica, because Brionica is the most awesome card in here. That's it for the combos that I can give you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, but most of all, enjoy.